right, welcome back to the show. My guest today is Nick Aicardi. Nick spent 5 years in the U.S. Marine Corps. He is the host of the Hard to Kill podcast, and all around very interesting story. Has one of the most unique stories I've heard about his time in the service. Ooh. Nick, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate that.
Yeah, man. After fits and starts, we're going to try to give this a go again because of fuck-ups on my end, so I apologize.
I'm starting to realize that's very normal in this game, man.
Seriously, Jocko and those guys make it look so easy, man. So until we get there, brother, we gotta just keep
on hooking and jabbing. I feel you, brother.
That's right. All right, Nick. So let's get right into this, man. A little bit about where you're from, your family, and why the Marine Corps.
Right outside Boston, Massachusetts. Kind of moved around a lot as a kid. Got to taste a little bit everything that Massachusetts had to offer. Blue collar family. I didn't necessarily need for anything as a kid. I mean, I had a good childhood. But I mean, I think I'm just a byproduct of the GWAT era, man. I mean, whether we liked it or not, 9/11 happened. We didn't really know what it meant at the time, but we knew it wasn't good. And ultimately, I think a lot of guys from my era wanted to do something about it. Even though, once again, now listen, this is something I keep crossing paths with, because we tell our story. We say that a lot of us guys, 9/11 meant a lot to us. But then you get the typical person of this generation. I'm sorry to go there 5 minutes in. But they tend to, we've all seen these. As you said, you have, tinfoil hat friends. I do as well.
Yep.
We all have YouTube accounts. Okay,
yeah,
we've all seen the conspiracy theorist, shots at 9/11, the wars overseas, the military-industrial complex,
right.
And some of us have just went farther and farther. So we've seen both sides. I'm not ignorant to the fact that I'm sure I was just a little piece in just a giant play, as a Marine in the GWAT era fighting in Afghanistan. But ultimately, it didn't matter to us, man. Guys that, we loved, that we trained next to, that we were with, for years on end, are over there fighting. And, as a Marine, you strive to be the best at what you do. And just, you want to be able to kick ass, point blank. And I think ultimately, the people that judge this the hardest never tasted anything like that. They never been in desperate situations. They've never, I refer to in combat, and they've never seen friends pass. I take a little disrespect from that, and ultimately that's why vets get mad when you question it right off the jump, because we got a lot more skin in the game than you. Right. Don't get me wrong, we're not ignorant to this stuff. I get it. It doesn't look good, but ultimately, at the end of the day, we are Americans, and someone had to do it.
Well,
at that time, that's
right. That's 100% right. That's the reason I started this podcast, man. I got hurt before my LCS class left, so I never made it. But when I would go overseas, I would always meet people that had really strong opinions about our military, and I would always ask, in Europe, especially in grad school, I said, have you ever met anybody that's ever served? Have you ever met do you know anybody that provides the protection for you guys against the Soviets? And now, have you ever met any of those people, And I just kept hearing these strong opinions from people that had no skin in the game. And so whatever you fall on the political spectrum, whether you think it was a giant conspiracy or not, ours is not to reason why. Ours is to do it as that old saying goes, right? When you train to do that, and that alone, just at that level, that service, whether you were a combat vet or you were a fucking ground pounder, door kicker or not, you made a choice to go, and you deserve to have I think it's a valuable perspective. Full stop. Those questions are beyond me. In military dress, I'm just one schmuck in LA, man. What control do I have over that? We can talk over drinks about whether building 7
we can speculate to the day's end, but at the end of the day, we live in this world. You know what I mean?
Right. That's right. And you had guys next to you, you had people that, laid their shit out for you. You know what I mean? Fact. And that's worthy of respect as far as I'm concerned, man. So 100%. Well said, brother. All right.
So sorry.
No. Let's do it. Let's go there. So, okay.
Well.
So You got talk a bit about your decision to go in the Marine Corps, because that was the same galvanizing event for me. My mom turned 6 shades of pale when I told her I was going to go in the Marine Corps. And but how about your family? How did they respond?
Yeah, not well. Not well. I think my family just had different plans for me. Ultimately, they wanted me to go to college. They wanted me to, fall in love with something, be great at it, be successful, and I understand that, but that wasn't my path, man. It wasn't for me. I knew it at that time. Kind of at that time, they were really pushing just the normal, school life. I feel like I would have done much better in a vocational kind of school. Like for some reason, that's not really around where I live, but I'm not really good with just sitting at a desk all day and listening to uninteresting things, topics that don't really, motivate me at all, that I'm not interested in. And ultimately, I mean, what was useful in, high school? What knowledge is really used in the real world ultimately? I mean, math to a certain degree.
Yeah.
I mean, other than that, I feel like a lot of that stuff is elementary to a certain degree. I'd rather learn about money. I'd rather learn about taxes. I'd rather learn about just real life elements that I'm going to be seeing as I grow up. Not. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love history, and gym class was fun, but yeah, I didn't really do well ultimately, and I in school, because I believe I was really uninterested, and definitely I'm sure ADD had something to do with it as well, but.
Or just really, called being a boy. Just being a boy.
That's how I like to look at it too.
Yeah,
but
just being a boy.
Other people say differently. But so I didn't really do anything special in high school. I mean, I played football, played lacrosse, got shitty grades, and I think ultimately, don't get me wrong. I mean, the commercials got me too. But I think ultimately a recruiter came to one of my football games and was just amping up the guys. And don't get me wrong, it was always something I thought about. I had done ROTC prior to that in a Young Marines program. I don't know if it's technically ROTC, but it's like some kind of paramilitary pre-program. And I liked what I was doing. I wanted to be a Marine, man. I knew what came with it, and I was ready to put it all on the line, period.
Gotcha. So you got a little bit of push from your parents. Eventually you went, though. So your first stop is Parris Island?
Yep.
Okay. Talk a bit about just your first impressions getting off the bus, and any people, leaders that kind of had made an impression or made their mark with you.
Leaders that.
Or anything that sticks out from that time. That kind of was like, okay.
Keep in mind, you're still really, really green in boot camp, man. So you really are not even thinking about leaders that leave a mark. You're just thinking about surviving.
Yeah. Yeah.
Honestly, you're scared shitless. When I went, guys were dropping like flies around me. I think we started with like 150 guys, and we finished with like 60.
Wow.
So I mean, when you're part of an element like that, where guys are dropping all around you, you see it's a real thing. You see it could be you. And it was definitely challenging. There was definitely times for everything, but you learned a lot. You learned a lot quick, and I fell into it, man. I really got. I think I got going around the rifle quals. I mean, I really like weapons, so I really dove into that, and I did well. And from there, I just I stayed with it. And honestly, something that always drove me was the guys that really talk to you on a real level. And for me, both of my drill instructors were grunts. I think the senior hat was a Motor T guy, but they really, at that time, they were really preaching Afghanistan, and they were, a lot of them, the good ones, will give you hip pocket classes about real shit. They'll go with the curricular for a little bit, and then they'll dive into like something afterwards and be like, listen, this is what you're really gonna see. This is what really goes into it. And I think ultimately that was like what pushed us in a certain direction, because I mean, we really knew that Afghanistan was going to be the first stop for a lot of us. So, at that point, you're not really realizing it still. You're just going through the the motions on becoming a Marine, but you start as get further into it, like, oh shit, like we're actually gonna be pumping out pretty quick, and
Mm-hmm.
it's exciting to a certain degree, but it's scary as well. I mean, there's 1,000 emotions that come into it, and it's weird. In the position I'm in now, 10 years later, I'm starting to really like look back and understand exactly what I was going through at that point, because
Right.
when you're going through all that shit, man, like you don't really sit back and be like, oh, this is why this happened. This is what this was. It's such a high tempo of make a decision on the spot. This is what's going to happen because of that, and from there, it's just a whirlwind of who knows. I mean, it happens to you very quickly, and afterwards, when you've gone through it, you sit back and you think about this, you think about that, you connect a dot, and you're like, oh, okay, this is why this happened. But it takes a while. You don't really, I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Absolutely.
regardless, I had a good time in boot camp.
Mhm.
I met a group of great guys. Someone that I guess leaves an impression is going to be at the time, he was a Staff Sergeant Chambers. I think he got out as a gunny. Just a real salty dude. And he would just scare the shit out of you to teach you something, basically. And a lot of that stuff just, sticks with you.
Yeah. Right. Right. And so your career path, as I alluded to earlier, is pretty unique in my experience. You eventually, your original MOS, but then you somehow got attached to where you ended up in Afghanistan with Afghans, which is living outside the wire, which is just really, so take us kind of through that first couple steps out of boot camp and then how you get to Afghanistan.
Okay. So I eventually got attached to 2nd Battalion, 3rd Marines out of K-Bay to do a PMT advisory mission, which is very vague. I mean, you hear that at the time, and you're just like, fuck yeah, we're going to Afghanistan. You're not really thinking about what that means. And you're not really, from the training, it was basically like we were going to stay on like a main fob over there. Eventually, like we would create a presence in the area, and we'd start training Afghan army, Afghan police on how to basically go on patrols outside the wire in their area of their, where they live, and how to deal with the Taliban, and basically be some kind of policing body in that area so people could somewhat have normal lives. And that's just not what we ended up doing. I mean, we got put in a very remote, very dangerous area. I mean, we were really the only offensive presence in that area. So if something went down, you're not really calling anybody. Don't get me wrong. You got like HIMARS and stuff like that, at a call away. But ultimately, someone can't come over and touch you for quite some time, which means, you got to be on the top of your game. And
Talk a bit like I always ask this. First impressions of Afghanistan. You grew up in Massachusetts, you're Afghanistan, and it doesn't have to be war related. Just smells, senses, sounds, anything. What stuck out to you there?
A country in chaos. Just extremes on all levels. You'd have fresh fobs being built, tons of military personnel everywhere, any type of equipment you needed. Clearly, there was just millions and millions of dollars being pumped into this. And when you go on the other side, the Afghan side, it's just a crazy, crazy dynamic of Afghan people that don't know what the fuck to do, that are basically being forced to do something by a shadow government, being the Taliban, but you're having a Marine Corps, Army, Navy presence in the area you live in, and you're being told, listen, tell us what's going on, it's okay, we're going to take care of it. As a civilian, like, what do you even do? Ultimately, the Taliban is coming to them every night when we're not there and being like, listen, this is ours. You're going to do this, this, and this, or period. So, I mean, ultimately, you got to think about your family. So, what I'm realizing now, being out of that area for a while, we had a ridiculously heavy presence of Taliban around us at all times, and I really I didn't put together because I mean, you look at just normal people doing their thing over there, in a bazaar, making bread, walking chickens around, whatever the hell they do over there. But I mean, they don't look like Taliban soldiers. I mean, they look like people. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, shit. I don't know. I didn't even know what Taliban looked like per se.
Right.
Versus like the Afghan civilian. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're a lot more weathered, a lot more, battle crazed, but I mean, you tell me if you can tell the difference.
Right.
I doubt it.
Right. Right.
But all in all, just a crazy time. A crazy time to be in, a crazy place to be at.
So you were in Helmand province, like the south there?
Yep.
And so describe, I think you mentioned off air, like you were kind of at a confluence of a major artery, a road, and where supplies, heroin, whatever, weapons. And so it was kind of to police that road, correct?
So
do I have that right?
We were at the intersection of Route 606 and Route 1.
Yeah.
Route 1 was probably the biggest or longest paved road through Afghanistan, and Route 606 at the time that I was over there was one of the more dangerous off-road elements that a lot of it wasn't traversed by RCP or route clearance. It was kind of just passed between British forces, Georgian forces, as just IED ridden and not worth going down. So, yeah, that was one of the roads that we had to deal with. And yeah, there was just poppy everywhere you looked in the place that I was at. So, no matter what, you can deduce that that's the Taliban. You know what I'm saying? Like, no one else owned poppy out there. So, ultimately, what's going through your head? You're in a heavily trafficked area. I mean, multiple times we found ourselves in situations where we're pulling hundreds of kilos of heroin out of vehicles that we busted up. I'm talking hundreds, bro. So, and really, where is this going? That's a whole nother thing to talk about, because from what I'm hearing now, 9 out of 10 poppy fields have been destroyed in Afghanistan, and now they're like growing something completely else. So, and conveniently, we're out of there. I don't know. There's a lot of things to pull from that. But yeah, we were in a very, very hot area for Taliban activity, and we were actually going on the offensive every day to a certain degree. I mean, we're taking 3 patrols every day, mounted to different areas, dismounting, patrolling through that area, knocking on doors, doing shurs with the village elders, learning, trying to establish some kind of presence where people feel somewhat safe in talking and dealing with you. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, what was all that for? Because, I mean, I'm pretty hung up on the Afghan withdrawal right now, man. Like, I think
I was gonna get to that. You and I have discussed it off air, so let's get to it. First of all, when I saw that, it made my blood boil, and it still makes me angry.
What's the first thing you think of when you see that?
Cluster FUBAR.
Yeah.
Total lack of balls.
So leadership. Leadership off
100%.
the top of your head.
100%.
Come on, now listen, I hate to be someone that points.
Right.
But
you can't help but.
From the trained eye, from someone that's been in the military, you look at that and it's bad planning. It's someone that didn't understand the elements they were dealing with, didn't care.
Yep.
And just which I doubt. How can you just not care about something like that? You know, Marines are going to die. Bad things are going to happen. Why would you not use proper planning to get through anything like that? Why?
And reading the report that the military put out, it makes me even angrier.
Really, I didn't even get to that.
You don't have to, but it's
redacted
just,
and empty.
Well, but also no, it's just that at every single step we made it, and it's easy for us to, as you say. I don't like the Monday morning quarterback and point fingers, but that was a friggin' home run, easy one to know.
Yeah.
You knew if you did certain things, you cut off, if you left everything alone between the airport and our base. You knew what was going to happen. If you put the Taliban out there, and we left a vacuum in the city, so the Taliban was sitting outside waiting for us to leave.
I'm still hung up on this, dude. Like I'm talking to guys that were over there at that airport. They told me what happened.
Yeah,
and they're literally staring at Taliban.
That's right.
How can you cannot tell a group of people that have been fighting these guys for going on 10 years that all of a sudden we've just made a backdoor deal with these guys. Clearly that's what happened. And now they're allowed to just do their thing.
Well, we leave $80 billion worth of equipment there. And I hear I wasn't there, you were, but I hear a lot of people immediately say the Afghan forces just fucking folded. They were paper tigers. To a certain extent, I'm sure that's true. But we had 2,500 soldiers in there and air support, and we held that place quiet for freaking years. No KIAs.
Fact.
And 70,000 Afghans got killed over there too, fighting for their country as well. So you take away close air support from ground pounders, they're going to get fucking run too. It's whoever they are. So just a lot of stuff. You read that report, if you ever get a chance to, you probably would know a lot. It would resonate even more with you. It made me furious, but leadership is obviously the first one. And at the end of the day, whatever side you sit on, we choose that leadership. So,
Got to.
So as I've told you before, like 4 or 5 of those Marines were California Marines. One of the kids out in Riverside, his parents are sheriffs, Hunter Lopez. Like I saw the honor rides for those guys, man. It makes my blood boil, man. Like it just because it was needless as well. You get a guy who goes down range, dies doing what he does. A warrior can accept that, but that I can't. That part is still hard for me to stop.
So are you aware? So I the last episode that I had on my show was a young staff sergeant, Dalton Hannigan.
Yep.
So Dalton Hannigan is with the boys that you know of Sergeant Tyler Vargas.
Yes,
Whistling Death. Yeah.
Sacramento kid. That's right.
That's like his best friend.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
So if you have positive ID, I'm sorry, guys. Sorry for a quarterback. And this is our shit. So we got to talk about it. We got to have the conversation. It needs to just be put out there and talked about, because honestly, he went and did his thing in the trial that he was in, and I haven't heard shit about it ever since.
That's
just
right.
got brushed on. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's not talk about
when he testified
this.
there. Yeah.
So, I mean, a kid like that has positive ID on a guy with ID making material, okay? And I don't know, I mean, I'm not even going to say that. Regardless, he got on his radio, radioed up to higher. Listen, this is what I got. Can I take the shot? And he got one of these. So, I mean, what do you say about that, man?
Yeah.
I mean, you could say 1,000 things. But regardless, I mean, I gotta stop saying. I gotta find another word for regardless. I dropped that.
It's all right.
I don't know. I really feel like that should have been an easy, or not easy, but
it didn't have to be that. It didn't have to be
It didn't have to be that. It didn't have to be that.
It didn't have to be 12, 13 Marines and an Army or a Navy guy coming home in body bags. It didn't have to be that.
Absolutely not.
And so
could have been avoided.
And it could have been avoided. So we still have to reckon with that as a nation, I think, still. And it's. I really think this is where I'm not a vet, but I really encourage GWAT vets, man, that have a stake in that, man. I know it's a cliche, but I'm a middle-aged guy. Go run for office, get involved, and hold people accountable.
You're right.
Do it, man. And I just
that's something Dre's big on, man. And he's been pushing that in my face. He's like, I'm just getting a part of this stuff. And the guys that are making these decisions are just not our people. They're not guys that are in the military. They're not alphas. They're not anything of who should be at least in the room talking about these things. You know what I mean? They're not who you would expect.
That's right.
And honestly, it's not us being proactive. We're not getting involved in the stuff that we should be. And you're right, man. You're absolutely right.
Well, that generation of my stepfather's generation was World War II. You know, they came home and they all and whatever political side you are, McCain from Vietnam, Bob,
whatever,
it doesn't matter.
Whatever.
Left, right, whatever. Get involved, man, because I really believe that we need that voice because,
absolutely.
hey, this podcast is 0.5%. It's a 0.5% that is at active duty in our country. It's everybody in the Vietnam and World War II.
That's what it is? That's what 0.5% means?
So that's what 0.5% about. 0.5% that's at any one time is active duty in our service. And the reason I thought about it is because when I was overseas, I would meet people. I would never meet anybody who actually had any contact with people in the service, and that was not true in previous years. You know, in previous generations. In my stepdad's generation, everybody knew somebody, so there was a little more skin in the game, man. And now I really feel like the people making those decisions are really far removed from people who actually go fight. And so, and I said, forget fighting, man. Like, even if you're a logistics clerk, it doesn't matter. You're part of that operation, right? And the average civilian population is really far removed. And that's one of the reasons I started this podcast, because I just said, man, I keep hearing these strong opinions about people that will go into government from academia, or in my case, or whatever, and they have strong opinions, and they don't even know how, I say this, don't even know how to fire a BB gun in anger, man. They've never been in that situation, and I don't really feel like they have skin in the game, man. So anyway, that's why I keep GWAT vets, get involved. I don't care what political party. I have my own views, but whatever party you're in, get involved, man, because that your voice in the room is needed, man. And that's why when Stuart Scheller did that and said what he said, I kind of said, well, you know, you don't want to go out of the chain of command, but I understand why he said what he said, man.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, because that's what he pointed to is what you said: total failure of leadership, completely.
That's what it is, man.
And he made.
And unfortunately, you are front seat for that in the military. And I mean, I'm sure in other branches too, but in the Marine Corps, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of fucking badass leaders, and a lot of them just make it look easy because they're so good at it. It goes so smooth. When you see just Marine Corps shit just locked in, going so smooth, that is just an example of just fucking great leadership down the line.
Right.
But you're also privy to a lot of young guys are given a lot of responsibility early. And that's a big thing in the Marines, because you really at that point in your life, you're making your bones. You gotta you gotta show that you are capable. So that's a motivating factor for a lot of leaders. You're given a lot of just like responsibility very early. And it's a good feeling being young and being able to handle something like that. You know what I mean?
Yep. So
that could just be taken a few different ways, but ultimately, leadership needs to be is so important that you can at least hear both sides of a situation, and you don't go in just bulldozing just because you believe something or you learned something in college. You need to really just be able to. When I always think of this situation, I think of like a boot lieutenant in combat coming to just like a new situation or a new group of guys that he's in charge of, and he starts trying to throw around weight and, this is what we got to do. Everyone better be shaved, boot blouses, lock cut, just saying the wrong things in situations where you need to be focused on just combat or staying alive. And
or learning. You're gathering information, ears open, mouth shut. Just learn. Talk to the guy who's been there the longest. Get him on your hip and ask him questions. Be curious.
A great example of this, if you get the chance. You probably already seen it. Have you seen Generation Kill?
Yeah.
It really, really shows a good leader and just a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
That just lets rank get to his head and ultimately gets Marines killed. That's what happens. Yeah.
No question, man. Well, anyway, that we could go on for hours on that subject, because that boils my blood on many levels, dude. And so, but okay, so I gotta ask. Tell me about Rambo, Afghan Rambo.
I actually have some to add to that. I mean, it's kind of sad, but it's real. But so this, a lot of AHP, ANA, Afghan forces, they get the they get hated on for good reason. I mean, a lot of these guys are just shitbags. A lot of these guys aren't fighters. You know, they're farmers. They're, who knows, whatever, bakers, whatever the jobs are over there. And they're just kind of doing this to either kind of earn some money, or they're Taliban and they're trying to just figure out everything from the inside. One of the two. But
Right.
a lot of them aren't fighters. And occasionally you'll get a trickle down of, have you heard of the Mujahideen?
Of course.
So the Mujahideen, I didn't really know a lot about them at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Enough about them. I wasn't privy to their history. If I could go back all again, I would completely understand my enemy. I would do research on all the elements, really understand why people were doing what, instead of going in there with a just ignorant mindset of anyone with brown skin or a turban on their head is the bad guy, because that's not what's going on over there.
Right.
I feel like I would have been a lot more effective at my job. But anyways, Rambo was with the Mujahideen, and this man clearly knew his way around a rifle and had been in combat prior. Just commanded respect. He, no one questioned him out of all the Afghans, even like the commanders. He just had he just had it. He was just one of those guys you looked at and you didn't fuck with. Period.
Right.
And it's funny. It's funny just seeing that in an Afghan, just a strong leader type in an Afghan. Because I mean, whenever you think of Afghanistan, you think of Taliban, the bad guy. But ultimately, this guy was I think this was a good guy. This was a good dude that had been in a shitty situation, and that's very hard to do. Be a good guy in Afghanistan, but that's what he was, man. He was just a fucking warrior, and he just commanded my respect, man, and he did it on multiple occasions. The one that I've spoken about prior on podcasts was we often would get opportunities to. So I told you we had two main highways that we patrolled down. We had to set up patrol bases all the way down them. So each one had about, I don't know, 8 patrol bases that we set up. So we would go out to a patrol base for about, I don't know, a week, couple weeks maybe. It'd probably be like 5, 6 Marines and probably like 10, Afghan forces, and then that you'd bring with you, and then there'd be like some at the patrol base already. And you would be like kind of tasked with, setting these guys up, teaching them perimeter security, teaching them how to build up their perimeter. You would go on dismounted patrols through the area just to get to know who you're dealing with, figure out your terrain, get a grasp of the area. I fucking love doing this stuff because it was really just you out there alone making decisions that, ultimately were life and death decisions. I mean, you're in the middle of Helmand Province, man, in fucking 2011 at 21.
Right.
Like these are. I wish I could just go back and really realize what I was doing at that time, because it didn't seem like nothing to me at the time. It felt like just second nature. But at that time, that was the most dangerous things to be doing. So anyways, we're there, we're making it work. We're living next to these guys, we're eating next to these guys. We're creating ultimately relationships with these dudes. I mean, they're doing the same thing we're doing. And you can't stand post with a guy and not fucking talk to him or fucking poke him or something, dude. You know what I mean? Like, you end up having conversations with these dudes, and they don't speak English. So and you don't always have an interpreter next to you.
Right.
So you learn real quick what's what. And I definitely could have a 15, 20-minute conversation in Dari or Pashtun with whoever you wanted when I was over there. I love doing that because you definitely learn some things. They tell you things without meaning to, and you command their respect a little bit when you take a little time to learn where they're coming from, or their language to a certain degree.
That's right.
So yeah, we're out there weeks at a time. We end up getting in a skirmish here, skirmish there. When I say that, pop shots ring off. Everyone gets down, exchange fire a couple of times, and either you're calling for backup, you're calling for the boys, or they run away. That's what happens out there for us. But regardless, we get probably opened up on from about like maybe a football field, and we return fire. We see them moving around. Ultimately, we get one of the big guns going. It's a wrap. But Rambo, keep in mind we're all in like a prone position, and Rambo gets up and he just starts fucking beelining after these guys, like on the foot. Okay, and ultimately gets down to a knee, lets off a rip, and he clips one of these guys in either like the lower leg or the ass, because he's gipping on the ground and he's not able to like get up and run. Fucking Rambo just basically like sleaze his big gun. Clearly he's done this before. Just had the walk down pat. Casually strolls up to this dude, kicks him in the head, kicks his weapon away that the guy's like trying to cock and fire, like separates them, and you can see him just staring down at this dude, and you see like spit coming out of his mouth because he's yelling at him. This guy on the ground is scared shitless, you can tell. And he like says something to him, stands straight over him, bam, blows his brains out. Just takes a handgun out from behind him, blows his brains out. Goes through his body, takes whatever he can, comes back to us. I'm like, bro, like, you can't do that, man. Like, I mean, keep in mind, this is the time that, like, all those sealed, pissed on dead bodies. So everyone's telling us, like, listen, devil, be careful out there. Guys got cameras, you can't just, do the damn thing anymore.
Right.
So we're all trying to, like, not do things like that. And what does Rambo do? So at the end of every night, like, keep in mind, these guys have nothing. Like, I'm talking poor people. Like, they're digging in the ground for water, bro. Okay? Mm-hmm. These guys have nothing. For some reason, between all of them, like, I think it was like 10 of these guys, they pooled in to feed us one night. And it was just such a unique situation to be a part of. Like, these guys were very, very proud because we had just got into like a little skirmish. They were all proud of themselves, and they all put together this dinner for us. It was very, very cool to be a part of, man. I'm sure other guys, have been part of this, but keep in mind we're in this ragtag patrol base in the middle of just a fucking chaotic area, and we're sitting down after they pray. The sun's going down, and they're feeding us. They first bring a bowl over, clean our hands for us. We're all sitting down Indian style, and everyone like kind of digs into the pile in front of you. That's how they eat, and the food's actually pretty fucking good, dude. It's like
really
a
good.
Combination of chicken with like this oily substance on it. You throw rice, vegetables on it, and you mow down. It's really, really good. But yeah, so we're all sitting around, we're eating, we're conversating. One of the Afghans goes into like their living area, and he pulls out like this fucking, I hadn't seen it when I was out there yet, so he must have just put it together, but it's like this intricate Afghan bong. And they all smoke hash like it's tobacco out there. And
Okay.
what they do after they eat is they all smoke up. That's very unique. I never thought about that like till now, but like everyone smokes weed. And
Right.
over there, when you have nothing, they'll just all huddle together. They'll put a little piece of hash on a pin, and they all have like some kind of straw, and they'll light the hash and put it, and everyone will just try to hit the hash with a straw. It's just funny how like all cultures, no matter who you are, you guys bond over a blunt or over weed or something, in just terrible situations. Everyone comes together for a smoke. So anyways, they bring it out. They try to get us all to smoke with them, and we have one Marine that's like pushing back heavy. He's like, guys, we can't be doing this. We can't. This is just not. It's not being a Marine. And the kid told the interpreter to tell the guy, like, listen, no, we can't do this because we're Marines. And Rambo hears it, and he like, I look at him. I loved looking at him when he talked because he would make these intricate faces. You could tell he was either pissed, happy, or whatever he was. But Rambo looked at the interpreter and he just like he cracked something off. He's like, "What you like? You?" The interpreter laughs and he's like, "What you bitch? Like you can't smoke you can't smoke with men after fighting, basically." And after that, everyone just smoked. We all smoked, and we're chilling. And it's a crazy situation to be in, man. Like you're just smoking with a bunch of Afghans. You see tracer rounds, Brad off, explosions in the distance. Like this is Afghanistan, and
Doesn't get more surreal, brother.
no, so I look at the interpreter and I'm like, hey man, why did keep in mind, we're all still like, what the fuck did Rambo just do? At least the Marines. Clearly, this was normal for the Afghans, so they didn't think nothing about it. But I'm like, yo, what was Rambo's problem, man? Why did he break security and put himself in harm to go just ice this random dude we don't know? And he looks at Rambo, and Rambo looks at him with these like wicked intense stare, and he rattles off like a 10-minute story to the interpreter. So gets done. Interpreter looks at me and he's like, oh. And he tells me this crazy fucking story of how Rambo got to where he is today. And Rambo, I guess at the time when the Russians came over there, was just a prominent rich Afghan. He had a farm, animals, crop, which was probably poppy. And I guess he had a bunch of wives, had a big family, and that's when the Taliban started coming door to door, and they started like, listen, if the fight comes to your area, we will be using your land, your house, your women, your everything is ours now. And apparently, he was one of the guys that just gave him the long middle finger. He's like, nah, no, and they came back and they just slaughtered his family. Slaughtered his family in front of him. Like, I'm talking, raped the women, killed the kids, burnt the ships. You know what I mean? Type deal. Like just a pillaging type effort. And yeah, that turned that dude into John Wick, man. Straight up. Like this guy just, yeah, he's got this, just intense hatred for Taliban, which is rare over there, man. Usually the guy, I couldn't tell the difference, man, because some civilians loved the Taliban, some hated it, some were real, because look at all the interpreters we had. All those Afghans that were interpreters for us, they were real with us. They're like, yo, the Taliban sucks. These are fucking religious extremists that look at the Quran differently than everybody else, and they look what they're doing. They're fucking crazy. So there was actually people over there that had common sense, and then there was people over there that loved the Taliban. They had been living with the Taliban for years. The Taliban kept their area safe for them. So,
That's where the gray area comes, man. That's why your experience is so important, because it's one thing to say this is the rule, but then you get over there and you're sitting there breaking breads with guys who you're going to shoot it out with, and you're like, hey, you're going to smoke hash, you're going to do this, whatever. That's when the rubber hits the road. So what do you do at that point? Then you got to make a decision. So anyway, that's why your experience is so important.
So, he tells me something like that, man, and you can't question a guy after something like that, man. Like, you feel him. You're like, what if this was me? What would I do?
What would any of us do? What would any of us do?
Like, I mean, come on. And so, nonetheless, throughout my whole deployment, this guy was a constant. He was always right there with me. On multiple occasions, I've rattled off right next to him. Like, we've fought together. And when you find people that hold the same regard as you in combat, basically don't bitch out, hold your own, and be dependable. You respect that in that person. I just made a little emotional quote on my Instagram because like I'll get on these pods all day and I'll talk about stuff, but some of this stuff are real emotions, man. We've been in a lot of crazy situations where at 21 years old, I'm trusting someone I hardly know in the fact that this motherfucker will cap a motherfucker if he comes up on me. He will kill someone for me. And that is just an extreme emotion to just delve into with somebody, man. Like, I mean, you fall in love with this person ultimately, man. You trust them completely. And yeah, crack your jokes all you want, but the real ones know, man. The guys that did this, they understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
When you have someone beside you that will watch your back, and damn well you'll watch his, man. That's someone you can completely trust, and that's a rare quality nowadays. Not a lot of people I can say have that type of morality to a certain degree. I haven't seen, or better yet, I haven't seen it since.
Yeah. Well, there's no more intense human experience, right? What did Patton say about war? All the other human endeavors fall away when it comes to war, and you experience that. We all like to think that we could be that. It's one of the reasons I wanted to join the Marine Corps. I wanted to think that I could be that guy and be around that. I don't know if I could, though.
That's ultimately the test that we as men, like we all strive for, because we want to validate ourselves. I'm not going to lie. Right. I want to know that I could hold my own.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
That's right. I think every man wants to, at some level on his psyche, wants to test himself in that and test and to be found that you got your shit together.
I agree with that completely.
You know what I mean? So yeah. And then what's the postscript to the Rambo story, man? You mentioned.
So unfortunately, I think like 3 or 4 episodes ago, I had my actual interpreter on my podcast.
Yep, it's a good shot.
And he told me that shortly after we left, keep in mind, this is everything the interpreter told me here, so I'm just going off what he said. Rambo tried to go see, I guess, some of his family somewhere, and I can't see Rambo just getting on a bus and going somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, this dude is not a dude that drives a bus, rides in a bus. Anyways, the story was Rambo got on a bus, and the bus got stopped. Taliban came in, rolled him up, kidnapped him, cut off his head, and sent it to his leader, ultimately. Someone by the name of Major Fareed sent Rambo's head in a box and said, your top boy's ours now, basically. Power move. That hurt. This is a guy that taught me things over there. Taught me things about living off nothing, about just being a straight savage in Afghanistan. Just a real individual, man. And you don't. There's not a lot of real individuals like that anymore. So his memory means something to me, and I will try to keep it alive as long as I can. Period.
That's perfectly said, brother. Perfectly said. All right. So how many deployments during your service?
So I just have the one to Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
We did Korea, we did Japan, Thailand, Philippines, but one combat deployment was definitely Afghanistan. Yeah, man.
Right. That's plenty. Kind of looking back, and then what was the decision to pull the cord eventually? Like when you got towards the end, what was your thinking going into that time? Did you think about ever doing a full 20?
I mean, yeah, I'm not gonna lie. That definitely was a thought at one time in my life. But I took a round over there, man. I got beamed in the head. I've been in multiple IED scenarios. I wasn't doing good towards the end of my Marine Corps career, man. I was definitely struggling with PTSD, TBI, anxiety for the first time in my life, something I never dealt with. I've always been an extremely strong individual. Someone that didn't really believe in mental health or anything to do with it. I always just thought mind over matter, tough it out, at the end of the day, and I didn't really take those things seriously at all. And I wish I did, man, because it was when the rubber met the road, it was a very, very hard thing to deal with, because when you don't believe in something, you don't look into it at all, and when it comes full circle and you realize this is a real thing that you're dealing with. It's scary, man. And ultimately, that's probably the main reason I did what I did with this podcast. Yep. I know that there are other guys like me, because you know why? Probably over 10 guys that I was in like special groups with. When I say special groups, like PTSD groups, like inpatient, government-run PTSD groups that have been in similar scenarios like myself. They're dead now because they killed themselves. Okay? So when you see that a lot, more than one time, it's humbling to say the least. Because in your head, you're like, dude, this is a real possibility for me. This could happen to me. Killing myself. And I don't want that to happen, dude. I like life, ultimately. I like being alive. I don't think 22 vets a day should be killing themselves. I think ultimately a lot of these guys were in the same situation I was. They didn't know how to talk about the shit that they were going through. They didn't feel comfortable. Because honestly, the guys that are in positions to help people like me are fucking garbage. Now, that's just my experience. I have dealt with good people. I have. I'm not taking away from it. Unfortunately, a lot of the people that I have dealt with for my personal things have been terrible. And I know what that can do to somebody. I know what it did to me. And that is what I want to try to accomplish through my podcast. I want to find new ways, new things to throw at PTSD, TBI. I ultimately want to just have conversations about it. I want to know what you went through. I want to know what I went through. I want to put it in a blender and see if we can come up with something. Because it's not being done right now. And it's almost taboo to talk about this shit. You almost get painted a certain color because, don't fuck with him because he's talking about the real. The hard conversations need to be had. We need to have them. We need to make it somewhat normal. We need to bring awareness to people that don't know anything about this. Yeah.
What do you think is, for me, because I've listened to a lot, thought a lot, that writer Sebastian Junger talks about tribe.
Yep.
He wrote Respetro, I think, whatever. But he says, guys that come back from that really intense experience like you had are maybe missing that camaraderie to the point where it starts to fuck with their head too much.
Of course.
And everybody's different, obviously. But what do you think that missing link where it's missing? Where a guy comes home and then has those ideations or whatever, and is it still?
I don't know, man. I was talking to a buddy recently, and he is someone like myself, someone that I know has been over there and fired his rifle a few times. We were just like, I was so successful over there. I did really well. I had guys under me. I was leading guys. It's a confident position to be in. And now I'm out and I'm just having trouble with everything. Like, what is the drop off? What is the disconnect? And honestly, I feel like to a certain degree, you're given so much responsibility in the military. You come out and there's just no purpose or there's no mission, there's no goal to be given responsibility for. It's almost just, I don't know, the purpose thing is big, man. And also, you don't have any of the guys that you were with in very, very stressful situations anymore. And ultimately, friends matter. But yeah, when you're all alone, you don't have purpose, people can't understand you, it all culminates. And, I think there's definitely something to that.
That's the podcast, man. That's all. And like I said, if you get one guy if you touch one guy, that's worth it.
Dude, I absolutely love the podcast for just connecting me to individuals like yourself, man. Stuff like this really, really helps me. I love just talking to like-minded individuals because when you're someone like us, we have aggressive stances. And a lot of the times people don't normally agree with what we're saying because they haven't been in the positions that we've been in. So you're kind of just a, dolo single, light in just a big room of darkness. So you got to be strong-minded and confident in yourself. I don't know, but the
No, I mean,
podcast has definitely been good for me. I'd say for sure.
that's if it's nothing else, it's worth it. If it's just for that, it's worth it. You know what I mean? But you are going to. I already know. I've watched your episodes. I know you have connected with people, and it's helped. It has to.
For sure.
And then kind of finally, man, like looking back now, you've had a decade to kind of, reflect on your career. What does being a Marine mean to you now? When you think of that word, what does it mean to you now?
That's a good question. I said that recently. I talked to Dalton Hannigan, a guy that was, in today's Marine Corps. It's just clearly changed a lot. I mean, to give you an example, we had a young Marine complaining about hazing. It really struck me odd for a Marine to be voicing his opinion on hazing. That it wasn't like when I say hazing, they trained them in a bathroom for an hour longer than they were supposed to with like push-ups, sit-ups, and like, you know what I mean? Like stuff to make you mentally stronger. There was a reason for it. They were trying to toughen you up. Like
You get
you're
harsher
getting
shit.
something out of it, man. Like
You get harsher shit at a college frat, man.
This is what I mean. Like, and you're voicing your opinion about it. You're trying to slander an individual that did that to you because he was trying to make you stronger. Like, something like that gave me pride back in the day because I know that I got it harder than the person over here. You know what I mean? So I'm more confident in my abilities to be tough, to take pain, to withstand bad things. That's ultimately what that's for. And you're taking offense to it so much that you're coming on, ultimately he was leaving a quote under somebody's picture on my page. Or not a quote, just leaving like a comment. But it's taken you to that you feel like you need to do that to an individual. Like, I mean, have we came that far?
Yeah.
Like being a Marine to me is holding your ground. It's being a solid individual that you can trust, that is loyal, that is ultimately there for you and not themselves. Not a selfish individual. It means a lot to me. It's not just one. It's not just one adjective that I can throw with that. Being a Marine is the best of the best. Someone that you can always trust to just be there and do that thing that you don't want to do and get it done. Yeah, that's what that means.
Very, very well put. Very well put. It's the reason I didn't make it, but that's the reason I wanted to join. I wanted to be part of something that was greater than myself and to be challenged at the highest level that I could possibly do, go to. So, yeah, perfectly well said. All right, man. So going forward, you started this podcast, Hard to Kill podcast, and I'll link to it. But when did you start it? Talk about your co-host as well. Guys that you in your circle, and where do you want to go with it?
So I'm about a year in. We got about 70 episodes. We're on Spotify. We're on YouTube. I have a co-host. His name is Mike Arbogast. We joined together in the buddy program. He was an EOD guy. We try to get at least one episode with him and myself, in-person episode in a month. And then other than that, I'll just interview guys, he'll interview guys, and we also have a Doc Martin that's been deployed with me with 2nd Battalion, 3rd Marines. He'd also been on a pump over in Marja. I'm not sure who with. But very, very salty individual. Just, guys that have done this, that have experienced this, that are dealing with PTSD, that have the symptoms. They know how to talk about this educatedly, and they want to hear what you have to say about this stuff. And ultimately, we want to help Marines. We want to bring down the suicide rate, and we want to find new ways to deal with PTSD and these mental illnesses that are just killing our guys, you know?
Yep. Yep. And then finally, man, future going forward, what's in the future, man? Do you expand on that? You going to get involved in other ways, or is just this right now what you're focusing on, or what?
I ultimately want to create kind of like I don't know if it's going to be events, like once a year, you know, I'll try to get like all the military guys that are being proactive in my space, whether it's merch, whether it's, gear, whether it's just podcasting. I'd like to create an event where we can all go to, attend, maybe do a live show, get people involved from our circle to talk about like prevalent things that we're talking about on a daily basis, and just have a good time.
Awesome.
I think that's one of the things we talked about that's missing is the camaraderie.
Camaraderie. Yep.
Creating an event that's for us and by us, I think is something that would be a great step in the right direction for what I'm trying to do.
Awesome. All right. Well, Nick, like I said, man, I'll link to everything, man. I appreciate your time. I always enjoyed our exchanges and texts and whatever, man, and whatever I can do to help in the future, you let me know, man. And, but yeah, like I said, I'll link all your up. Hard to Kill podcast. Go check it out. And yeah, Nick, thanks, man, and all the best, dude.
Nick, thanks, brother. It was a pleasure.
All right, man.